Hello my friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the 6th genome in my 12-part video series on Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. Sidelkino is a village located in Samarskaya Oblast in central Russia. In Samarskaya Oblast, right on the border with Tatarskaya Respublika, Republic of Tatarstan. So the Republic of Tatarstan is located to the north, right here, and Samarskaya Republic, Samarskaya Oblast is located a little bit to the south. And as you can see, Sidelkino is located right on the border between these two regions in Russia. This village is still inhabited, but it was actually inhabited by people since at least the Mesolithic. And these Eastern hunter-gatherers that I've been covering, the very first video that I've made, you can definitely watch it on my YouTube. I definitely implore you to watch the first video. It was the most recent sample from the Neolithic period. All the other samples that I'm covering are from the Mesolithic period, including this one. This sample is also from the Mesolithic period. And this sample is a male. Let's get into it. In terms of its deeper admixtures, this is an Eastern hunter-gatherer, which means it is similar to other Eastern hunter-gatherers who inhabited Russia and Eastern Europe in the Mesolithic period. It is a mixture of ancient North Eurasians, which are represented by a Fontova Gara tree here um, on this admixture graph with G25, Western hunter-gatherers, which are represented by WHG on this admixture graph, and Caucasian hunter-gatherers, CHG, which are represented by Georgian CHG with this admixture graph with G25. So mostly this individual, just like most of these other Sidelkino hunter-gatherers, has mostly ancient North Eurasian admixture, a little bit of Western hunter-gatherer admixture, and also on top of that, a little bit of Caucasian hunter-gatherer admixture. Very typical kind of admixture for Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. By the way, something that differentiates Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino versus Eastern hunter-gatherers from Karelia, for example, is that Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino have a little bit of Caucasian admixture, whereas Eastern hunter-gatherers from Karelia don't really have that. Now, in terms of the haplogroup, the Y-DNA for the sample is R1A. Very interesting. This is a Y-DNA that's very, very common for Eastern Europeans nowadays. Also, it is common for various South and Central Asians. And the mitochondrial lineage for this individual is U4A1, which is a European hunter-gatherer lineage, very common for European hunter-gatherers, and is also very common for modern Europeans today. Let's go ahead and see what he scores for Nashakot calculator results, what he looks like. All right, so it looks like he is scoring brown eye color as the largest group for eye color. He is still scoring quite high for hazel eyes, but he does not have hazel eyes. 36% for hazel eyes is quite significant, and hazel eyes is the largest group for eye color that he scores after brown, but he's still scoring brown eyes as the largest group for eye color. He's scoring quite significant numbers for blue eyes with a neighbor center green as well. But still, the largest thing he scores is brown eyes. So most likely his eye color is still quite dark, although lighter than all the other Eastern hunter-gatherers I've covered, which needs to be mentioned. He is scoring black hair for hair color, and he is scoring light brown, olive, and he's actually scoring quite significant likelihood for white and palest skin as well, which is definitely very interesting. So there's some chances of white skin for him as well. But still, most likely he's got light brown skin. For hair texture, he most likely has wavy hair, although there's also a very significant chance of straight hair. Probably doesn't have curly hair, definitely does not have kinky hair. And for nose shape, he is actually scoring Greek nose shape. So he's scoring more of a aquiline, long and narrow kind of a nose shape. So based on the stuff that we see here, I'm expecting that we're gonna see some Mediterranean like maybe Basque, maybe some kind of Mediterranean groups in the Phenotype Oracle because of the nose shape and because of the wavy hair and because of the intermediate pigmentation. But we're gonna see. What's interesting is he's got two light color variants here, which means with snipper free he might even score hazel eyes. He doesn't have BEH3. He does not have BEH2. Does not have BH4. I want to see what he scores with Snipper 3. With Snipper 3, he might score Hazel Eyes, and he does not have any light color variants in MC1R. So with Snipper 3, well, let's see it right now. It probably will not be Hazel. It probably will not be Hazel. It probably will be brown, but I want to see nonetheless. It might be Hazel. Let's see. No, it's brown. Okay. Okay, it's brown. Alright, so he's still got brown eyes. Let's go ahead and see the phenotype oracle. And for the phenotype oracle, these are the phenotypes he scores. So the closest phenotypes to him are this, followed by this, which are all very, very brown people, which makes sense. I mean, he's got light brown skin, he's got brown eyes, he's got black hair. You can't expect him to look Nordic and white when he's got these types of characteristics. So the closest to white in the phenotype oracle is this. And for the mixtures of phenotypes, the closest mixtures of phenotypes to him are essentially a mixture of 50% this plus 50% this. So this would be like, I guess, Indian or South Asian phenotype plus 50% European hunter-gatherer, then 50% European hunter-gatherer plus this Pamiri, then 50% this Western hunter-gatherer. I just call it Western hunter-gatherer because that's what I associate with Western hunter-gatherers. Western hunter-gatherers score this with my trait predictor most of the time. Plus this, which is a South Asian phenotype once again. Then this, which is kind of like a Middle Eastern phenotype, plus this. Very, very interesting. But he's quite exotic looking. And at this point, we see a pattern emerging of Eastern hunter-gatherers scoring all kinds of very exotic phenotypes with my trait predictor. So definitely very dark. And the green eye sample, the sample that has green eyes, it is still coming up. You will see it very soon. I don't know when I'm gonna post it. I might post it tomorrow. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But anyway, let's close that. And let's see what he scores for the biomarkers. Biomarkers panel. For the biomarkers panel, he is scoring way below average for levels of vitamin D. Let's look that up actually. Let's look up vitamin D and see why he's scoring the way he is. So he's got these three genotypes and they all lead to decreased levels of vitamin D, so that makes sense. Very unfavorable genotypes here. Okay. Okay. He's got above average level of LDL cholesterol, which is really unfortunate, and above average level of HDL cholesterol, which is okay. He's got above average level of glucose, which is okay, not too bad. If it was higher, it'd be worse. He's got above average level of hemoglobin, which is okay. Below average blood pressure, which is good. Below average level of iron in the blood, so probably does not have any hemochromatosis variants. Yeah, no Celtic curse. And average level of sex hormone binding globulin, average level of red blood cell count in blood, below average base pairs number, so slightly shorter lifespan, and slightly below average expected height, very slightly below average expected height, so slightly shorter than expected. Very cool. All right, let's go ahead and see the polygenic risk scores for this sample now. So it looks like for the polygenic risk scores, I'm gonna ignore everything that's close to 1, and I'm only gonna talk about stuff that's relevant and interesting. So it looks like he's got very low score for kidney stones, very low score for hemoglobin E disease, low score for thyroid cancer, low score for exfoliation glaucoma. Let's look that up actually. He might have the protective variants from that in the file. Yes, he does have the protective variants from exfoliation glaucoma, which is very good to see. Very, very good to see. He's got high odds for cataracts, which is unfortunate. Higher odds for age-related macular degeneration, which is unfortunate. Slightly higher odds for arthritis. Slightly higher odds for epilepsy. Unfortunate. Higher odds for vitiligo. Wow, that sucks. Well, for vitiligo, I think he might have risk variants in the HLA gene. So we're gonna see. Actually, let's look that up right now. Does he have risk variants for that in the HLA gene? Let's look that up. He does. He has a risk variance for that in the HLA gene. So for the HLA gene panel, we might see some risk variance for that there. Okay, he's got slightly above average odds for primary biliary cirrhosis. He's got higher odds for male pattern hair loss and below average odds for stroke. So higher odds for male pattern hair loss. He might be experiencing some balding at an early age. He got below averages for deep vein thrombosis, which is pretty good. Slightly above averages for unipolar depression, so slight predisposition to depression. Above averages for bipolar type 1, and above averages for schizophrenia. All right. He also has very high odds for type 2 diabetes and very high odds for type 1 diabetes. All right, very interesting. So there might be some interesting things going on with the HLA gene panel, because that's very much implicated in the type 1 diabetes risk score. He's got a high score for Alzheimer's, and he's got below average odds for multiple sclerosis. That's pretty good. Below average score for multiple sclerosis is pretty good. No risk variance for breast cancer, really good. 10 risk variance for testicular cancer at 16, and he's got all the risk variance in Keto G. So he's quite cooked when it comes to testicular cancer risk variance in Keto G. Is testicular cancer that big of a concern for him? I'm not sure. I don't know, because I feel like testicular cancer only really took off with technology and these 5G and electromagnetic radiation. All that really amplified the cancers and the way they develop in people. And in the Mesolithic period, none of that was a factor. So I feel like because of the lifestyle, and I feel like because of the environment that he was brought up in, he might not have even developed these predispositions to cancer. Might not have been that big of a deal, right, as they are today, because of the different environment. 2 risk variants for celiac disease out of 10. All right, these are pretty common, I think. No big deal. No risk variants for GSS. 3 risk variants for Crohn's disease. None of them are marked as important, so that's pretty cool. No risk variance for Raffenstein's. He's got 1 risk variant for Parkinson's, and I've seen this before, but this is not common, so this is something to be concerned about a little bit. No risk variance for Gilbert syndrome. Nothing here. Nothing here. I'm not seeing any risk variance here. I do see 1 risk variance for FAC, FTAAD, and this is actually a homozygous call as well. So this is probably not a miscall, which is definitely very interesting, and it's not marked as common either. So I'm not sure how to interpret that. This is definitely something to be concerned about. For allergies, he's got 10 risk variants for allergies out of 18, which is definitely quite high. So there is some predisposition to allergies based on this information in the file. But aside from that, I don't see much to be concerned over. Aside from this is actually a little bit concerning, because you're not supposed to see something like this. I mean, this is very rare. 2 risk variants here is very rare, and he's got 2. And it is not a miscall, because miscalls, typically you'll see heterozygous calls. So that's definitely very interesting. Okay, let's close this. And let's go through the monogenic traits and see what he scores. So for the warrior versus warrior, once again, we see the same pattern of Eastern hunter-gatherers and hunter-gatherers from Europe in general scoring warrior with my tool. At this point, if you've seen my channel, you've seen my videos, you probably noticed this pattern. Various European hunter-gatherers all score warrior on the warrior versus warrior panel. It is a very European trait to be a warrior. Essentially, the dichotomy is that warrior has higher activity of the COMT and MAOA enzymes, and these enzymes that break down dopamine, whereas warriors have lower activity of these enzymes. I say this in every video, but I feel like I have to keep saying it, because new people watch my stuff, and I have to update the memo every time for new people that watch my videos. But anyway, I'm just saying this for new people who are new to my channel. But anyway, these warriors have lower dopamine levels because they have more of these enzymes that break down dopamine, and because they have lower dopamine levels, they have higher stress resiliency. They are better at handling high stress situations, because in high stress situations they reach ideal dopamine threshold for functioning. But because they have lower dopamine levels in low stress conditions, they are incapable of functioning at an appropriate level, incapable of concentrating, incapable of motivating themselves. It's kind of like ADHD. Whereas for warriors, which is like the European phenotype, or the phenotype that most of these hunter-gatherers from Europe have, they have higher dopamine levels naturally. So that means that in low stress conditions, in conditions with lower stress, naturally they are quite good at motivating themselves and performing well. However, when stressful conditions come, they are not able to perform that well. They get overwhelmed. Let's get into excuse me. Let's get into the DRD2. For the DRD2 panel, he's scoring higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, which is a not a very European genotype to have, but I noticed that some Eastern hunter-gatherers score this. So it looks like he has a predisposition to higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, and some predisposition to such conditions as schizophrenia and bipolar. For levels of 5-HT and serotonin, he has a predisposition to intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin, so intermediate predisposition to such conditions as anxiety and depression. And for autism, he has a strong predisposition to higher levels of autism. Definitely very interesting. So definitely very predisposed to autism. Let's see what else. No dwarfism, pretty cool. He has this genotype which is very uncommon and leads to 7 times increased risk of DSPS. Very cool. For lactose persistence, let's see. For lactose persistence, he has a genotype that leads to intermediate odds of lactose intolerance. Overall, his phenotype leads to intermediate odds of lactose intolerance based on these 4 genotypes. But he has one genotype for likely being lactose persistent, but then he has 3 other genotypes that lead to likely being lactose intolerant. So really, it's 1 versus 3, and all things considered, he most likely has intermediate odds of being lactose persistent. For OXTR gene and the empathy, it looks like he has a predisposition to higher level of empathy based on these 4 SNPs. Definitely very cool. For diabetes, we already know that he has high score for both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. For Alzheimer's, no risk variance for Alzheimer's and APOE, which is really, really cool. Okay, for cardiovascular disease panel, let's go through that. It's right here. It looks like he's scoring lower odds of cardiovascular issues. Really, really cool. So he's definitely quite protected from various cardiovascular issues. Really, really cool. For, let's see, facial morphology panel. So he does not have East Asian EDAR. Neither of the 2 genotypes for EDAR that he has in his file are East Asian. So he's got European genotype in both the EDAR variations that were found in the file. Definitely really cool. He's got genotype for longer midface length, genotype for intermediate nose size, genotype for nose pointing up, and genotype for intermediate eyebrow thickness. Very interesting. For miscellaneous section, he does not have a micropenis. Very good. He's got mix of muscle types, slightly more sprinter rather than endurance athlete. Very cool. He's also not an Asian flusher. Very cool. So he doesn't flush up when he drinks alcohol, and he's not prone to being more addicted to alcohol. Very cool. Very cool to see that. Okay, I think we're gonna skip that. We're gonna skip that as well. Doesn't have any risk variance for familiar Mediterranean fever. He also doesn't carry any risk variance for albinism. Very, very cool. He does have a genotype for impaired folate metabolism in the MTHFR gene, so we might see increased levels of homocysteine for the homocysteine panel. Actually, yeah, we will see that. We will see increased homocysteine levels because this genotype is also very risk. So you see 10 to 20% efficiency in processing folic acid and high homocysteine. Yeah, so we will see high homocysteine levels for the homocysteine panel for sure. This will be very interesting to watch. And once again, higher than average levels odds for alcoholism. It's like clockwork. If you see a Eastern hunter-gatherer sample, they all score higher for alcoholism. I'm not sure why. I'm really not sure why. It looks like a pattern at this point. Okay. Let's look at the rare diseases and traits panel. Looks like they have 20 times increased risk of ankylosing spondylitis, but I'm noticing a lot of people have that. They have 5 times increased risk of rheumatoid arthritis. I noticed this as well. I noticed a lot of people have that as well. And I don't see anything else. Okay. For celiac disease, they have one HLA-DRB1 risk allele, so they have some risk variants for celiac disease. Very, very interesting. So this might contribute to the higher risk score for the HLA gene panel. They have 4 APOB risk variants for familial hypercholesteremia out of 4 total. This is really unfortunate. This is a big risk for the APOB gene panel. So definitely some predisposition to hypercholesteremia. Definitely big predisposition to that. Big risk for that. They do not have the A allele here, which would protect from baldness. So in the AR gene, there's this variation which sort of can protect you from going bald. And there's certain ethnicities that have the A allele here that carry the A allele that sort of protect them from male pattern hair loss. Mainly African ethnicities. So this individual does not have the A allele. Nothing too surprising. Canavan syndrome, no risk variants for that. HIV and AIDS panel, he has 2 protective variants here, which lead to a 90% reduction in HIV viral load, so he's quite protected from HIV, very good. And for HLA gene panel, we see intermediate or slightly higher odds of autoimmune disease. Yes, so there is definitely some risk variants in the HLA gene that predisposes individual to slightly higher odds of autoimmune disease. Okay, for the MTRR gene panel, we see 2 risk alleles for disorders of intracellular colon metabolism. Actually, let's count up the risk alleles. It's 2 out of 6, so it's quite significant, but it's not that big of a deal. 2 out of 6. If there was more data to go off here, I mean, the max I think is 7. The max I think is 7 variations. So that's 14 alleles in total. 14 alleles in total. And here it's only 6. So I mean, there's not much data to go off here. But 2 risk alleles out of 6, I guess, is not that big of a deal. For CBS panel, homocystinuria panel, looks like he is scoring elevated homocysteine levels, as I said, as I was expecting. That's because of the MTHFR gene panel and its contribution to this. But let's see what he scores here. He has the gene type with lowest plasma homocysteine levels, which is good. This lowered the homocysteine panel, the homocysteine level panel, quite a bit. And this is actually the highest impact SNP as well. And he has other genotypes that also lower the levels. But still, because of the genotypes in the MTHFR panel, because of that, he is still scoring elevated homocysteine levels because of that. That played a much bigger role than these variations. Okay. For muscular dystrophy myopathy, no risk variance anywhere here. 1 risk variant for adrenoleukodystrophy out of 10 total. You cannot have 1 risk variant for ADL out of 10 total if you're a male. You cannot have heterozygous calls for this if you're a male. So from this, the fact that it says 1 risk variant, we already know that it is a miscall. Not only do we know this because you would, if you have this, you would not have lived past like the age of 15, but we also know this by the fact that you cannot have heterozygous calls for this as a male, right? You can't because it's on the X chromosome. So this is complete. This is just a miscall, right? We know this is a miscall. For the color blindness panel, he's got 2 risk variants for color blindness in OP and 1 SW. All right. Okay. Typical stuff. For FTO gene panel, he's got predisposition to lower or intermediate odds of obesity, which is pretty cool. Based on these, how many? Based on these 5 SNPs. For syncope panel, we found nothing. For biotraits panel, let's see, what can we talk about here? He's got 1 copy of the hunter-gatherer and 1 copy of the farmer variant in the CLT-CL1, which leads to intermediate ability to process carbs and sugars. Cool. And finally, we're going to skip through all of that. For blood group panel, his blood type is definitely blood type O, the most common blood type among all humans today. No other blood type comes close in this prediction. I mean, blood type A is at 3%. It's not really significant. So he most likely has blood type O. Nothing else in this prediction comes close. 96.7% likelihood of type O. It's pretty precise. He definitely has blood type O. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. And In case you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Check out the other videos I've covered. Check out the other videos where I've covered these Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. Make sure you check out um, the description of the video, where will be the download link for this particular sample in 23andMe format, this DNA sample for this Eastern hunter-gatherer, and there will also be the link to the itch page where I sell my trait predictor, my program that you can use to generate a DNA report like this. And you can also buy a $4 report just like this that contains all this information and more, usually more information. If you have like a normal MyHeritage or 23andMe or ancestral report. So it only costs $4 for one file. And that link will also be in the description of the video. So make sure you check out the description, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.